This past week has been a ride from hell for a lot of us out there, but none more so than those of the music industry, I'm sure. It was hot, the month of July rolling slowly by us while we all sweat our asses off in hellish humidity, and everything seemed to be quieter than usual. But the day continued to drag on, and things were fine until they weren't. July 22nd, 2025. What I have since dubbed the worst year to come so far. The world stilled in a moment of silent passing while we all mourn the loss of Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness. And in this video, as a fan of Ozzy myself, ever since I was a teenager, I wanted to pay my respects to the late musician in the only way I know how. And to do just that very thing, I wanted to showcase the most pivotal moments in Ozzy's life and in his career as a god of rock. Born on December 3rd, 1948, in Birmingham, England, Ozzy was born. He went on to gather a pretty loyal following as he took the reins of vocalist for the 1970s heavy metal group Black Sabbath before he embarked on his own solo career in the 80s. Cultivating a rather rebellious and satanic persona as the self-proclaimed Prince of Darkness, Osbourne became the quintessential metal frontman. He was mostly known and admired for his shock rock antics on stage, as well as his deeply personal struggles with drug and alcohol addiction in the long run of his life. During his later years, he and his family starred in a popular enough reality TV series called The Osbournes, which ran from 2002 to 2005, of which there were various spin-offs. Before we get too far into that, though, let's stop and take a look back at Ozzy's earlier life. Ozzy was raised in a working-class family in Birmingham, England, where he dropped out of school at the tender age of 15, holding down various odd and low-paying jobs to support himself financially. He became involved with petty crime as he evolved into adulthood, and at age 17, he was imprisoned for 2 months for a burglary. Following his release, he sang in a number of local rock groups and eventually went on to form the rock band Earth with guitarist Tony Iommi. To avoid any confusion with another band of the same name, the group then changed its name to Black Sabbath, named after an old Boris Karloff movie of all things. The group soon developed a grinding, ominous sound, which was based on the blues, but intensely amplified, and they drew the attention of people around them with their tendency to reference the occult in their song lyrics. In February of 1970, Black Sabbath released its eponymous first album, and then quickly developed a radical following in both Britain and in the US. Black Sabbath released albums each year throughout the mid-1970s, except for Lucky Year 1974, and after their tour for Never Say Die in 1978, Osbourne was ultimately fired from the band he created. A rough period of despair and severe drug abuse soon led to Osbourne's divorce from his first wife, Thelma Mayfair. He then went on to marry Sharon Arden, who fiercely encouraged him to start a career as a solo artist. His very first effort at doing just that, which was achieved with the primary help of guitarist Randy Rhoads, was Blizzard of Oz in 1980. This was a multi-platinum success, too, thanks largely in part to the standout single Crazy Train, probably the one Ozzy Osbourne song that everybody on planet Earth knows, regardless of being a fan of his or not, and this was followed by the equally popular Diary of a Madman in 1981, which sold more than 5 million copies once it hit shelves. A defining moment in Osbourne's career came during the tour for the album, when, believing that someone in the audience had thrown him a rubber toy, Osbourne bit off the head of a live bat. Ozzy found his first solo top 40 hit with the song Mama, I'm Coming Home from the album No More Tears in 1991, and then in 93 he won a Grammy Award for all-around best metal performance for the song I Don't Want to Change the World. Despite announcing his retirement in 92, he continued recording throughout the entire decade. Ozfest, an annual summer music festival featuring heavy metal acts organized by Osbourne and his wife, began in 96 and toured throughout the US and, in some years, even parts of Europe. And by the end of the 1990s, Osbourne had reunited the original members of Black Sabbath for a brand new album and tour, and in '99, the band won a Grammy for Best Metal Performance for the song Iron Man. In 2013, Osbourne made his first studio record, 13, with Black Sabbath following a 35-year absence, guys. God Is Dead, a single from the recording, earned the band yet another Grammy for Best Metal Performance all around. Jumping back a bit to 2002, the reality television show The Osbournes went on the air, a show that was focused on the day-to-day life of Osbourne and his family, premiering on MTV, and within just 2 months, it had become the third highest rated offering on cable television, which is totally insane, am I right? Not only was Ozzy a brilliant composer, he was also a really damn good actor too, apparently. I mean, hell, I used to watch the show myself, back when I hated the world and everyone in it. Anyways, the hugely popular show ran until 2005. The Osbournes later starred in the reality series The Osbournes Want to Believe from 2020 to 21, as well as the special The Osbournes Night of Terror in 2020, both of which focused on paranormal investigations. In March of 2006, Osbourne and the members of Black Sabbath were finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and in 2007, he released his first solo studio album in 6 years, titled Black Rain. He followed this up with Scream in 2010, Ordinary Man in 2020, and Patient Number 9 in 2022, the latter of which won him the Grammy for Best Rock Album, and its single Degradation Rules, which featured Iommi, was named the Best Metal Performance. In 2023, Osbourne canceled his upcoming concerts because he was not physically capable of performing and the traveling that was required to tour. The 74-year-old Osbourne stated that his body was weakened from a serious spinal injury he'd suffered just 4 years earlier. However, he did continue to record. In 2024, he teamed up with Billy Morrison on the single Crack Cocaine, and later that same year, he was inducted as a solo artist into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And then, on July 5th, 2025, Osbourne reunited with Black Sabbath once more for what he claimed would be his and the band's final gig. Osbourne opened a 10-hour-long concert in Birmingham, performing his solo hits while seated there on stage on a black throne due to Parkinson's disease and other health-related issues rendering him unable to walk. Several other metal and rock bands, including Metallica, Slipknot, Tool, and even Guns N' Roses, all paid tribute to Osbourne specifically, and Black Sabbath. And then the event closed with a reunion of the original Black Sabbath lineup. Osbourne was only 76 years old when he passed from this life into that great black beyond on July 22, 2025, which broke the hearts of several. Pursuing acting as much as he pursued music, Osbourne acted quite frequently, usually playing a caricature of himself or that of a comparable rock star in such movies as Austin Powers and Goldmember, as well as the 2016 remake of Ghostbusters. He also lent his voice talents to the animated feature Romeo and Juliet and its respective sequel, Sherlock Gnomes, as well as Trolls World Tour. Ozzy Osbourne was the godfather of heavy metal music, a self-proclaimed Prince of Darkness, a fucking reality TV star even, and a not-so-secret family man. British singer and legendary musician, Ozzy's death only left behind a legacy as one of the major titans of all rock and roll. Starting out way back in the 1960s with the influential and intensely amplified Black Sabbath, Osbourne enjoyed a rather lucrative and long career that went on to spawn some of the absolute wildest legends in rock music history. He also recorded platinum-selling albums, and he earned 2 inductions into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame himself as a solo artist and himself as part of Black Sabbath. Tell me that isn't legendary now. And so, let us continue on by looking back on some of the Ozman's most iconic moments in his entire life. Osbourne formed Black Sabbath with Terry Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, and Bill Ward in their very own hometown of Birmingham, England. Taking their name from a Boris Karloff movie, like I mentioned earlier, they cultivated a prominently dark and foreboding image with occult-themed lyrics, ominous guitar riffs, slow churn tempos, and Osbourne's own sullen vocals, which were quite haunting indeed. In 1970, they released 2 albums titled Black Sabbath and Paranoid, which is probably my personal favorite Ozzy song. The latter of these 2 spectacular albums, which featured the titular track and a soon-to-be classics War Pigs and Iron Man, another great one, and the album soared to the very peak of the UK charts. And it has since been considered one of the most influential heavy metal albums of all time. Right the fuck on, I say. By the late 70s, Osbourne was years into heavy drug and alcohol abuse, which ultimately led to his being severed from the vertebra of Black Sabbath. Reportedly, the final straw came during the band's 1978 tour of the US, with up-and-comers Van Halen on board as the opening act. After a gig in Alabama devolved into a night of carousing between Osbourne and Van Halen frontman David Lee Roth, the bands headed to their next show in Nashville, where Osbourne ended up going missing. The police and the local press were notified at once, but with Ozzy absolutely nowhere to be found when showtime started, Black Sabbath was forced to bow out, canceling their tour and leaving Van Halen to play a full set all on their own. Later on, it was discovered that Osbourne had passed out for a long nap in the wrong hotel room. Black Sabbath made up the gig 3 days later though, but Osbourne, unfortunately, was out of the band for good. Arguably so, Osbourne's fans have his second wife, Sharon Arden, to thank for his astounding second act. The daughter of Black Sabbath's manager, Sharon offered to manage Osbourne after he was fired from Sabbath. They married in 1982, just 2 years after his successful solo debut with the multi-platinum Blizzard of Oz. For many fans, though, that very album's standout single, Crazy Train, which featured an electrifying guitar solo by the ever-immortal Randy Rhoads, is the ultimate Osbourne track. One of the most notorious moments in all of Osbourne's career, and potentially his life, came on the tour for the 1981 album Diary of a Madman. While Osbourne was performing on stage, someone in the audience threw him what he initially thought was a rubber toy. Picking it up, Osbourne bit off the head of a live bat because he's a total badass and a fantastic performer. But he never lived the incident down. Even now, I think, there are people out there that look at this one incident as Ozzy selling his soul to the devil or something. Osbourne did predict the incident would end up following him into the grave, eventually winding up as the epitaph on his tombstone. At the end of his 2009 autobiography, I Am Ozzy, he wrote this: "If I close my eyes, I can already see it. Ozzy Osbourne, born 1948, died whenever. He bit the head off a bat." Anyways, Randy Rhoads was a classically trained guitarist and a founding member of the California-based metal band Quiet Riot, which were alright, I suppose. I mean, I listened to Quiet Riot, before joining up with Osbourne in time for Blizzard of Oz. Rhoads' riffs are all over the tracks: Crazy Train, I Don't Know, and Suicide Solution, all of which he co-wrote alongside Ozzy himself. He also played on Diary of a Madman, and in 1982, Guitar Player magazine named him Best New Guitarist. While out on tour with Osbourne that same year, he was killed at age 25 in a private plane crash in Leesburg, Florida. Osbourne released the live album Randy Rhoads Tribute in 1987. Rhoads was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2021 alongside Ozzy. Moving on, you should know that it wasn't all chaos and excess melodrama. Sometimes Ozzy gave back what he'd been given, and on July 13th, 1985, Black Sabbath reunited for Live Aid, a benefit concert for famine relief in Ethiopia, held simultaneously at Wembley Stadium in London and at JFK Stadium in Philadelphia. Osbourne led the band in a stellar, absolutely hypnotizing performance in Philadelphia. As with most of the more than 70 acts that played Live Aid, Black Sabbath's set was Children of the Grave, Iron Man, and its biggest hit, Paranoid. Following this, Ozzy and his lovely wife Sharon launched Ozzfest, which was an annual summer music festival that featured mostly heavy metal acts, and it was all because of a snub. See, in '95, Ozzy was outright rejected from the lineup of Lollapalooza, a festival of alternative rock, techno, and hip-hop artists that was started by Jane's Addiction leader Perry Farrell. According to Osbourne himself, Lollapalooza's organizers passed on him, telling his wife Sharon that Ozzy was a dinosaur, in not so many words. And so, the following year, Ozzy just said, fuck Lollapalooza, and he headlined his very own festival, Ozzfest, which toured all throughout the US and parts of Europe in specific years. The final Ozzfest was held in 2018, unfortunately. Back in 2002, the reality TV show The Osbournes hit the airwaves. Focusing on Osbourne's home life with his wife and their darling children, Jack and Kelly, the real reason that anybody probably watched this show, premiered on MTV. Within 2 months, it had become the third highest rated show on cable television. It offered fans of his music to see another side of metal's most notorious wild man, as the cameras followed him around his Beverly Hills mansion, dutifully taking out the trash or intervening in his kids' sibling rivalries. The Osbournes also started a trend of other celebrity reality shows, such as Newlyweds, Nick and Jessica, and, for better or for worse, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Yes, that show is that old, you guys. Crazy to think about. Moving up to 2006 again, Osbourne and his Black Sabbath bandmates were all inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Lars Ulrich and James Hetfield, of fellow metal band Metallica, performed the induction honors in their name. And in 2024, Osbourne himself got the Hall of Fame treatment once again, but this time he was inducted as a solo artist, with actor and Tenacious D frontman Jack Black paying tribute. Black said, "Blizzard of Oz was the best thing I'd ever heard." During the ceremony, the anticipation of his excitement electrifying in his wild eyes. "A heavy metal masterpiece," Black said. Despite announcing his retirement more than once in his career, Osbourne was always willing to return to the stage. But by 2025, however, various health problems, including Parkinson's disease, had rendered him unable to walk, and on July 5th, he played his and Black Sabbath's final gig to a crowd of more than 40,000 in his hometown of Birmingham. Osbourne opened the 10-hour concert by performing his solo hits while he was seated on stage on a black throne, and several other metal and rock bands, which included Metallica, Slipknot, Slayer, Tool, and Guns N' Roses, all paid tribute to the Prince of Darkness. And the event closed with a touching reunion of the original Black Sabbath lineup. What a hell of a way to go out, I say, and with that, we have reached the end of this little tribute of mine. Paying my own respects to Ozzy and his legendary status as a rock god, it's been a nostalgic trip for me. I listened to Ozzy quite a bit when I was an angsty teenager, and I still listen to old Sabbath even now, well into my 30s. Ozzy touched a lot of people's hearts with his music, which have since gone on to transcend the very flow of time itself, and will continue to do so for generations still to come, I am sure. His music had a way of resonating with some deeper part of yourself, awakening within you a celestial desire to embrace the darkness that lurks within. And it is why I will continue to jam out to Ozzy for years and years still to come. This one was for you, Osbourne, and may you rest in peace. You have deserved it, I think.